right, let's take you back to this now. Director of a Business School at the Northwest University, Professor Joseph Sekhampu, says the South African state is not failing, but perhaps functioning exactly as designed. In an opinion piece on the Institute's website, Sekhampu says that the revelations from the Madlanga Commission remind us that what we call a crisis may, in truth, be designed. The professor joins us to shed more light on this. Prof, good to have you. Thank you very much for your time. Yeah, I mean, interesting view. What is, to others, a crisis of failure to manage public properly, or what they call governance failure? Others have downright called it a failed state. Others are saying a dysfunctional state. What are the essential features? What's the difference?
For me, Thabo, you need to trace it back to how we ended up here. In 1994, we negotiated a settlement where stability was a priority. And part of the challenge was that the previous regime was really a highly centralized government. So with the new government having little resources to distribute, we didn't address the land question, we didn't address issues of the redistribution economy. And therefore, we were left with one thing to use as a leverage against the constituent that is restless. And that, for me, there were three areas that this resulted. One was, we thought of introducing the tendering system. While on paper it looked good, over time, tendering system was used as a means to align to those that are closer to power. And I think also one has to look at it as a challenge that resulted from the blurring of lines between the political spheres of our world and actually the administrative sphere. And here I'm referring to instances where over time, then we introduce a cadre deployment. So now you have a technocrat in government that is beholden to a political system. And in a way, the lines then becomes blurred. And over time, the system fits itself. If you look at the theory of system thinking, the system does not align to what we desire. It works on feedback loops. If you and I know that, the quickest way to get our driver's license is to give someone a handshake, we will definitely do that. And over time, it will not be a problem of individual parts of the system. And overall, the system will function that particular way. And that's really my logic in this interpretation.
Yeah, so you're saying the inefficiency for growth, right, is as a result of what we have fed to the system, that it's at the point where institutional intervention is no longer viable?
I don't think necessarily it's no longer viable, but I think for me the point was that if you look at our municipalities, there's no real incentive to fix the water problem. Because if the water pipe bursts, who benefits from this? Our rules allow for emergency procurement, and over time this is not above board. And if we have a water-based problem, then who's going to get the tender? And over time, there's no real incentive to fix the water problem because someone is going to benefit from the delivery of tender. If you look at our roads, we are in constant repairs. There are parts of this country, if you traveled a year ago, you will still see roads being fixed. The undertaking is that the system feeds on what I call the emergency economy. Everything is always in crisis, but those that are benefiting from the crisis have got no incentive to fix the challenges.
Yeah. So those who are looking at this breakdown in performance or this non-performance are saying this is because of a breakdown of the legitimacy and political viability of this state.
Yes, definitely. I think, for me, I also look at it from this perspective that the system renews itself through commissions. If you trace it back, we had the Zondo Commission. There were recommendations. Did anything come of that? The Newzroom Commission also highlighted how the political system were hollowing out SARS. But now we've got the Madlanga Commission. One of the allegations is that a sitting member of a minister has actually interfered in the operations of government. But then what happens if there's a similar thing like this? Initially, the president calls the nation, and there's a commission, initial euphoria, outrage, and then it dies out. And then there's another error. So the system has perfected a way of creating legitimacy by creating working groups, task teams, and ultimately commission. And over time, as constituents, we've become tired of all the changes, and we don't expect any improvement from this current system. And I think for me, that's the biggest crisis that we'll have. You have a constituent that just looks at the president introducing a plan and say another plan. And I think for me, the question is then what to do in these current circumstances.
The proliferation, I beg your pardon, of labels like Gwara state, whatever you want to call it, crisis state, or you want to call it country at the risk of instability, and so on and so forth, or a country under duress or under stress. Do these really help us get to the core of the problem, helping us conceive what the problem is and therefore come up with the correct diagnosis?
Yeah, and I think South Africa has got unique features of that. In political science, there's the term of the neo-patrimonial state, where the functioning of the courts, of the legislators work as perfectly as one can on paper. But there's a similar and parallel economy that works on networks. And I think this happens across Africa, where often for you to go ahead in terms of dealing with the government, you have to talk to someone. But what is different in South Africa, on paper, it looks like everything works really well. The constitution is there, the courts are there, but all those are hollowed by a political system that's trying to really influence. And again, I mean, I've just highlighted the commissions to really indicate the common thread in all these commissions is that the political sphere, which is supposed to provide oversight to the administrators, have gone from their territory to now influence what the administrators are supposed to do. So the line between what is a municipal manager and the mayor is blurred because the municipal manager is dependent on council led by the mayor to appoint them. And again, he is the person or she's the person that's supposed to sign on the tender. And who then takes accountability when the constituent is saying we are not delivering against our mandates?
So are you saying then from that we are to conclude that this growing view of state dysfunction, maybe others even going to the extent saying it's state failure, is not a coincidence? We should not view it as a coincidence. There are players who have interest in us being in the state that we're in.
Yeah. And I think for me, the other challenge is that even if you have a well-intentioned president, the system functions in this particular, unless you have got moral conviction and you really address the tenet of it. And for me, these are the incentive structures. What is the incentive for one to really go and queue versus to pay someone to get the work done? And I think for me, it is that in systems thinking, the system's outcomes are not dependent on our desired plan. It feeds on feedback loops. And in our instance, the feedback loops are such that for one to get going in life, you had to be as close as possible to those that are in power. And if you look at the township economy as an example, you have a lot of entrepreneurs. But the incentive is not to create a new product, but the incentive is to really say, how do I get closer to the political elite such that when the next tender is issued, I'm ready and able to benefit from it.
Yeah. So what then, Prof, are you saying are the necessary inputs that need to change to move from this corrupt patronage state, if you like, as others see it?
I think one of them is, and again, we are very good in diagnosing the problems, and we're never good in implementing. In the 10-point plan that announced by the president last week, one of them is professionalizing the public service. We really have to look at that because our constitution have got two spheres of government: the political functions, which are really the voice of the people, and the administrative layer. But often you have comrades that are now leading at the director generals in some of the government offices. So I think for me, one of the easy pickings is what actually the president has highlighted in his 10-point plan to say we need to professionalize the public service, and we need to do it at the coalface, because while nationally we can issue grants and funding, it is at the coalface of municipal delivery that we need to sort out some of the issues around who is occupying a CFO position and what are the requirements. And I think also to restore trust, let's make these processes transparent. Let it include external stakeholders in the recruitment of key professionals. but also we've got a professional body in government that has got the capability to manage this appointment. So I think for me, there could be a number of interventions, but one is let's professionalize the public service and let's separate it from political influence.
Yeah, there are some who will agree with you in the political space that says, yes, these mechanisms of trying to control, like commissions, whatever, ad hoc committees and SIUs and whatnot, are not necessarily going to get us anywhere. But there are others who believe that there is a role of politics or political parties that can certainly take us in a different direction. Hence, you are seeing more political parties. Others then decide, no, we can't break ourselves in so many small pieces. Let's again unite and form some kind of an alliance. Is there a political input that can certainly change this situation?
For me, it's the political will, and it really starts at the top. I think many of us were excited in this current presidential era that eventually we are going to see change. But often we're seeing a system that, self-preserve. You can talk about the GNU and some of the ministries that are allocated to alternative parties. But similarly there, some of the directors that are brought in are from there. So while one can decry from the outside that cadre deployment does not really work, but then you get a member of the GNU doing exactly the same. So I think for me, it's we need bold decisions, and we need a leadership that says, I am willing to lose comrades to really fix this challenge that we have. And I think it really is doable. And it's not about coming up with really new laws. We are one of those countries in the world where our laws really allows for transparency. And like I said, as an example, there's a clear separation of powers between the politics and the administration. But over time, we have allowed that to blur. And at this stage, to correct it, we need to look at the incentive structures for our economy.
Director of Business School at the Northwest University, that's Professor Sekhampu. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on.